This is Horror Podcast.
Welcome to This is Horror, a podcast for readers, writers, and creators. I'm Michael David Wilson, and every episode alongside my co-host Bob Pastorella, we chat with the world's best writers about writing, life lessons, creativity, and much more. Today, we are talking to Danger Slater for the second and final part of our conversation. Danger is the author of a multitude of books, including House of Rot, Starlet, I Will Rot Without You, and Moonfellas. And today, a lot of our conversation is surrounding the release of Starlet, published by Ghoulish Books. But if you want to read Danger Slater, you could honestly start with any of his stories, and I think you're going to have a good time. He is an underrated author. He is a master of dialogue. If you like dark humor, if you like unpredictable tales, if you like a little smattering of WTF and Bizarro amongst your narrative, then the fiction of Danger Slater is certainly for you. And in spite of all the comedy, in spite of all the weirdness, there is always something poignant and a commentary on society, on humanity, if you dig a little bit deeper. So certainly if you haven't, Danger Slater is one to check out. But before we get into the conversation with him, a quick advert break.
Are you a reader with an insatiable appetite for creeping dread? Do you hunger for fiction of an eldritch nature? Try Cosmic Horror Monthly, a magazine dedicated to publishing the very best in cosmic horror and weird fiction. CHM offers tomes in digital and print, and when you subscribe today, your first print copy is free. Hurry, before the stars finally align.
In 1867, the young Samantha Gray marries the infamous Captain Jakes, unleashing a series of brutal horrors in this epic splatter western from Death's Head Press. Mayhem Sam by J.D. Grace is a rip-roaring tall tale of revenge, drags a coffin full of gold across the hellscape of Reconstruction, Texas, and explodes at the top of a mountain. You better read this one with the lights on.
Okay, with that said, here it is. It is Danger Slater on This is Horror. Yeah, and in terms of your books, if you could choose for one to be made into a movie, which book would you go for?
I mean, Starlet is built basically to be a movie itself. Like, it is structured like a movie. It, especially the beginning, like, it's pretty familiar territory up until like the turn where it starts getting weird. So like, it is very much like, oh, you know, like a girl goes somewhere and things go bad. Like, that is what fucking movies are. There's a lot of stuff that I've written that is like, and I think we were talking about this. I don't know if this is on mic or before we started recording, where it's like, how would they even film this thing that I've written if they were to make it a movie? Like, it's not really built for that necessarily translation. But Starlet itself has the structure very much on purpose, because it's a book about movies, to feel like how a movie would feel.
Yeah, and is there anything that you're doing to look about shopping the rights around? Do you have any kind of connections, a film agent, or like
I will. I mean, it's very difficult to get anybody to pay attention to anything. But I do have a film agent. Her name is Carmen, who is doing her thing out there, trying to do her thing. She also was a producer herself, but kind of working on her own thing. So I'm in the mix, like as far as getting anything like this made, it's like, it's great to have someone who has connections like her, but also she's going to pitch it to the right people. So unless she's like talking to someone who wants to make a freaky, weird horror movie, like it's not going to come up in the conversation. And that's just kind of how the agents who do that work. Like they're not going to, unless the book itself is blowing up and then people start knocking on her door asking for me. But otherwise it's like, I have a pocket full of stories. Who's the right story for this person? Like, what's the right pitch for this producer or this studio or whatever?
I have like a really, really sick mind. And I would think that if Armie Hammer wanted to do a comeback movie, Starlet's the fucking script, because it would be crazy if he leaned into it, said, yeah, I'll fucking do it.
That would be a lot. That would be, I don't know how I would be scared, to be honest.
I know, but I mean, if he just like, yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I get where you're coming from. I get everything about it, and I'll do it justice. That would be like, wow, that's so fucking crazy.
Then I'm at that moment where we were talking about before, where I'm like, okay, well, would my working with him make me? Because I want this done. I want a movie made. Would that make me now one of the victimizers? Am I now in league with the fucking bad guys because I want the thing that they can give me? And that is like that fucking Faustian bargain that is offered to like anyone who's trying to get ahead or do anything to get ahead, is this like trade-off of like, you're going to have to fucking possibly swallow some shit if you want to get the thing that you get or want to get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think Armie Hammer is just a little bit too on the nose there. It's like, as Bob said, he's like, yeah, I get it. It's like, no, you get it too much. Like, I fear for the safety of whoever would be cast as Deja. It's like, in that situation. So I could imagine maybe someone like Andrew Scott playing Brandon, who was in the TV show Ripley. He is also in Fleabag and Sherlock.
Mm-hmm.
He's an Irish actor. He's got that kind of classic look, but I don't know, probably it was because of how good he was in Ripley that now I don't trust him. I think there's something under the surface. So, yeah.
If I was to cast Brandon, I would want Josh Hartnett to play it.
Oh yeah.
Like he's very, very handsome. I was like trying to think of like, not that I sit out here, I'm trying to cast my books, but I was thinking about it with this one. Like I said, I do have an agent who's trying to pitch it to people. Like, I'm like, who would I want to play there? And I'm like trying to think of actors that have a kind of that trajectory where like Josh Hartnett was like really hot when I was a teenager or late teenager in my early 20s, whatever, like 20 years ago. And he kind of went away for a while, and he's kind of having his little comeback right now with that M. Night Shyamalan movie he was just in. But he's still great. He's still very handsome, but like, I don't know. It's just like, I want that kind of like, I would love to have an actor who like embodies what the character actually is. Yeah, like you're saying, Armie Hammer would be a little too on the nose, but just like someone trying to have a comeback, someone that we love that needs a comeback would be like great to cast in a movie like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I find it amazing too that it's like you have this actor who has like this really, really dark side, and he's managed to keep it hidden even within his movies. I mean, we have a guy who is the living embodiment of Lonely Island's "I jizzed in my pants" And I mean, but he manages to keep that a fucking secret. It's like this guy comes when the wind blows,
Yeah.
which it's led to some extreme, like laugh out loud scenes in the book. And I'm just like, how did this guy keep it fucking secret, man? It's like, well, how did you do that? But I don't know, it makes me think of how many people in Hollywood actually have those kind of kinks and things like that. And it's probably more than we can imagine.
I mean, and the thing is too, like these secrets in Hollywood are like open secrets that everybody already knows.
Mhm.
Like these people have like, and it's not everybody, obviously, but the fucking bad guys like are doing it with impunity because they have all this power, and everyone is just kind of like looking the other way or pretending like they don't know or whatever until it gets to the critical mass where like, okay, now something needs to happen. Now we need to arrest them, or now they need to face consequences, or someone finally, you know, victim number 120 is finally the one that breaks the fucking camel's back for some reason. But like,
Right.
that is like, it is happening, and it's probably going to continue to happen forever, and not just in Hollywood, but everywhere, because this is just like the dark part of, the world itself and,
Right.
and power. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and it's like what the same thing happened with Ron Jeremy, and he's in the adult business, so it's kind of like, dude, what you really had it all, and you ruined it, and of course now he's like totally mentally incompetent, has dementia, conveniently weird, but I don't know, it's just there's a dark side, and you really you expose it, and it's good that you did in such an entertaining way. It's like, if you're listening to this and you're on the fence of reading this book, you should really read it, because there's some on the surface stuff and there's some undersurface stuff that cuts. That's really important.
Yeah. I wish I was like as good at explaining myself as I am at like when I have time to sit down and write these kinds of things, because I feel like I kind of like lose my own beat, like I lose the fucking bead when I'm talking. Like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm like, oh man. So half the time I'm like, I know I have a point to make, but I don't know where I'm landing now. Like when I sit down to write, it's like actually slowing my brain down in a way that I could have these kinds of thoughts and these kinds of debates in a way that I can actually make sense and make it a real point of what I'm trying to do, instead of just kind of rambling or firing off tweets where, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm getting at. It's exactly what I'm talking about.
This is exactly why we're writers, because we get that opportunity to have these multiple drafts and to really consider, what it is that we want to say. So I think, a lot of people are in a similar situation. But I mean, as you mentioned, social media, I mean, what is your relationship like with that at the moment? And I mean, how do you even decide what it is that you're going to put out as content on social media?
Yeah. I wish I wish I had better opinions about stuff, because I can't, not that I wish I had better opinions, but I wish I knew how to express my opinions in a better way, because I feel like a lot, especially Twitter, but a lot of it is kind of built around kind of putting an opinion out there and then having people kind of like corroborate your opinion, or push up against it or whatever, or retweet you or reblog you or whatever, saying, hey, yeah, I think this too. This guy's speaking for me. Like, and that's just not how it works, because every time I have a thought about something, I also think about the other side of it. And it's not like I'm like, oh, well, this obviously wrong thing is not something I should be against. But I'm like, why would I need to say that? Why would I need to say the thing that everyone else is saying? Like, so I treat it very much like a place for me to make jokes and kind of make silly content, because that's what I can bring to the table that is uniquely me, that I know I can handle. So I could not really get too deep into it, into like actually engaging with social media. I just can post my little joke and then let that sit there and be like, I still exist, guys. Look, there's a funny picture of me.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to be, particularly with the type of books that you're writing. It's complementary to what you're doing. And I mean, we don't have to talk about social media for too long. It's probably best that we don't. But the big negative, I think, is that there's always an encouragement to have a strong opinion on a polarizing issue, but often an issue where if you look at it properly, there's a lot of nuance and there's some truth on either side. So, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't engage in these things a lot because also I'm liable and it's okay for me to change my mind. So I don't want to put this definitive statement when, in a few weeks' time, if presented with evidence to the contrary, well, I might have a different
Yeah.
opinion. And the world isn't really painted in black and white, it's all these different shades and these different colors.
And we're in like kind of a transitional stage of social media anyway. Like I know, like me in particular found a lot of success through Twitter 8 years ago, which you're in the same boat, I'm assuming, with the podcast and in your own writing, using Twitter as kind of your main place. It is a rapidly sinking ship at this point, where you do not get kind of a fraction of the engagement or eyes on anything that you used to. Even if it is one of those hot button or controversial issues that get a lot of retweets, it's still not working the way it used to. So I don't know what the next thing is. Like, people be like, "Oh, do a TikTok." I sound like I'm 100 years old. Do a TikTok. People be like, go on TikTok, but it's like the same fucking thing. It's just the new thing, and it's like, what? That's not really the answer. And I don't want to sit around and make stupid like videos of myself dancing. Like, it's just not my vibe. So like, I don't know what is really next. I think it might be kind of more like these kind of discords and places that are more community focused, where it's very specific people that you're talking to instead of trying to talk to the whole world like you would on a Twitter. You're going to be talking to a couple hundred people in this Discord, and then maybe a couple hundred people in this other one, and that's kind of the way to kind of get your kind of brand out there, is more personal and direct than necessarily like a big billboard on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, it would make sense because a lot of things are cyclical, and kind of the earlier days of the internet were forums and
Yeah.
message boards, and that's kind of what, Discord and other platforms are essentially like. That's what they're doing. But yeah, in terms of a kind of Twitter replacement, if there is one, it hasn't arrived yet. You've got Blue Sky that's essentially a copycat, and that's getting some traction, but I don't see it ever taking over and becoming bigger than Twitter. Whatever it is, it will be innovative, but TikTok is not the platform for writers. It's kind of the worst platform for writers in the sense that, exactly what you were articulating before, that like video and kind of in person conversations, that's not where you have clarity of thought. So I think it would be at least a text based medium, but maybe
Yeah.
we're done with it. Maybe people are fed up of, these text based Twitter clones and Facebook clones.
And like, I mean, not to speculate or get off topic here, but like, we're in the middle of a big paradigm shift in what the internet even is going to be anyway. Because in 5 years, with all this AI take, like, it's just going to be a completely different place. You're going to be all the content's going to be written by robots. Robots are going to be reading it. Like, we're just going to be sitting there on the sidelines watching them do their fucking thing. Like, it's just kind of like not going to be what it was. And I don't know where finding new readership is going to come from, because the things that used to work for me are really kind of on their way out.
I don't know if either of you have noticed, but if you ask a question or search for something that could lend itself to a question on Google, then these days at the top is an AI generated answer, kind of trying to distill and to summarize from different websites what the answer to that question may be. So even these big platforms are shifting in the way in which they operate because of, the emergence and the popularity of AI. And
Yeah.
I think like basically anything pertaining to technology, AI could be good or could be bad depending upon how it is used. It is not it is not good for, creativity and for the arts and for writing. Let's get that out the way before they're like, whoa, this is horror is making a pro AI statement. No, I'm not. But, I could see for a very quick summation and an overview from Google, it could be useful to a point. It gives you a quick starting point. Probably not so good that it outweighs all of the disadvantages, but that there are some aspects that might be positive from it. But as it is managed and controlled by humans, there's your flaw. They normally seem to fuck up everything anyway.
No, I was gonna say, but then the AI is going to fuck everything up too, because like it is just going to be taking bad information and then feeding it back into itself. Like if Google is getting its information from articles to kind of give you an overview, and then they start having AI write articles instead of people, then it's just self-referencing itself. So there's really no veracity or no way to verify this kind of information. I guess that's true of any information you read on the internet at any time, but at least like at some point you would assume the person who wrote the article was some sort of journalist or someone who spent some time actually studying or learning about the thing that they're writing about or researching it or something. Like, you could at least have the knowledge that somebody cared enough to do the work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even in my corporate setting, we have AI. We have our own search engine because we have, promotional things and things like that. So we have our own search engine that we use, and they've incorporated AI into it. And literally every time I search something, if I'm trying to find a promotion, like I have customers who come in who, talk to someone on the phone and say, hey, yeah, they said to look up this promotion. I'm like, oh, good, you have the code. And so I'll punch it into the search engine. The first thing that comes up is an AI aggregate explanation of the promotion. Doesn't tell you how to do it. Just tells you what you get. And it's kind of like at my level, a 12-year employee, it's kind of like, okay, that's the no shit part. I have to go to the next link, which actually takes me to the promotion, which is the info that I need. Like, how do I actually do this? Oh, and so to me, that's my own company has invested in this, and it's a complete and total waste of time. And if you read in our private forums that we have, there are thousands of comments going, well, why did y'all do this?
Yeah.
Even new employees are like, this is dumb. We want the actual content. We don't want the aggregate of it. Thanks for the definition. It's like, oh, wow.
Someone's gonna have to build a new internet. That's what's gonna happen. This internet is gonna get ruined, and we're gonna need a second one that is like not full of that. Like, that is just like how it used to be. I sound like an old person, just like, it was better, but like it was. If not even that, it was better. It worked. It used to work. And now it's like breaking. It's all breaking down.
It's the internaut. We need to have so turn what's now into the internaut, and then we'll have internet too. Yeah.
I like that.
Now, shifting away from the internat, Kit Kats, I
Oh.
believe that you have a new obsession, a new passion, and that is Kit Kats, and that can be verified for people watching the video because there seems to be almost a Kit Kat
There's a
poster
poster. Yep.
or some sort of promotion in your house. So
Yeah.
talk us through this. Last time we spoke, it was the Guinness Book of Records that was the interest, and now you have evolved to Kit Kats.
I've realized something about myself over the past couple of years that I kind of just start doing things without really putting a lot of forethought into it, and then I just keep rolling with it, right? Like a few years ago, I read a long book I read Antkind by Charlie Kaufman. It's like an 800-page book. It's the longest book I'd ever read at the point. And I said, wow, I can't believe I read this long book. Hey, what if I only read long books for a whole year and see what happens? Didn't think about it. I just started doing it. Then I spent the next year reading only books that were over 600 pages. So that was my thing. I read I only read like 15 books, I think, or 16 books that year because they were all so long. But I spent a whole year reading long books, and I was like, cool, I'm done. I did it. Great. And then I realized that I do this all the time, that I like start committing to bits that I didn't realize I was even setting a bit up for myself. And that's sort of what this Kit Kat thing is. Not that it is a bit, because they're delicious candy bars. I've had so many at this point. But my partner, my girlfriend, had a subscription box to this snack company that would send international snacks to your house every month. And one month, I believe it was Japan, sent their box, and it had a few random Kit Kat flavors in it. Like, not chocolate, but like strawberry or something, right? And I was just like, what the hell is this? And I ate it. Oh, it's delicious. And I was like, I didn't know they had that in Japan. Like, that's so weird. Let me check this out. I looked it up. Apparently they have like over 200 flavors in Japan. So I was like, fuck it, I want to eat them all. So I started trying to eat them all. trying to get my hands on them, which is not an easy thing to do because a lot of them are from other countries. But yeah, I did this. I'm still doing it. I don't post about it like I used to, but I'm still eating them. And I'm up to about 70 or something like that, different flavors I've tried.
Yeah, before I came to Japan, I just knew of Kit Kat, and I think maybe they made Kit Kat Chunky that was just, this is a Kit Kat but bigger, and maybe they made Kit Kat Dark that was marginally darker chocolate and a Kit Kat. But then coming to Japan, there's so many flavors, to the point where I went back to the UK last year as a novelty, like for my family. I bought them loads of different Kit Kats because, you have strawberry, as you mentioned, you have matcha, there's stuff like orange Kit Kat, but there's even more kind of obscure flavors. There might even at one point have been something like Earl Grey Kit Kat. Like, who decides that is a good idea? But I think in Japan as well, there's a real thing about limited edition chocolate and people just lapping it up and buying it, and also seasonal chocolate. So there might be a flavor that is going to be popular in autumn of that Kit Kat, but once autumn is over, that's it until next autumn, and it creates this urgency and this demand, which then helps with the sales. But I think the takeaway for me is I've got to start photographing the Kit Kats and send them to you and be like, are there any missing from your collection? buy that one and then like build up a collection and send you some of these
That
Kit
is
Kats. 'Cause
that
there's
is
so many.
I was that's how I was getting so there was a couple different places I was getting them. I was first of all, they started doing some limited edition ones in the States themselves. So we've had like breakfast cereal. It's like Fruit Loops flavored and churro and stuff like that. So, but I have a place called Uwajimaya down the street that is a international, specifically Asian food market, and they usually have some there. So they will get like kind of a rotating stock of some there. And then there was an online place called Sugio Mart or something like that I would order them from Japan itself, that they would ship them over. We were spending a lot of money to get chocolate bars shipped internationally. I'm like, wow, it's like $30 in international customs shipping for like $20 worth of candy bars. But I also started getting people to mail them to me too, like who had access to them. So I've had some really interesting flavors, like tons of different sake flavored ones. A wasabi one, which was a lot better than I thought it would be. The wasabi is actually kind of a subtle kind of like hidden note. Like it was very much a white chocolate with then this like little spice would creep up in the back that, the wasabi spice kind of like sits in the back of your nose a little bit. Like, so you'd like kind of feel it in the back of your throat, that like that burn. Yeah. It's crazy. Like I said, I've had about 70 at this point, and they're almost all good.
Yeah. I'm really curious because I know how candy is. My mom used to work for Hershey, and I know that. Have you ever tried like the regular Kit Kat, but international? In other words, like the regular flavor that we have here in the States. Is it? Do you feel it's better, or do you feel that it's like an inferior quality? The reason I bring that up is like prime example, Cadbury egg. When I think Nestle bought them, the original Cadbury only had 4 ingredients. Now it has 18, because of in the U.S. they want to have a longer shelf life, so they put additives and preservatives in there, and so that way you have a candy that can come out during spring and last throughout all the way from the time it hits the stores past Easter, and so without spoiling. And so is there a difference?
I mean, yes. The thing is, though, a lot of the Kit Kats that are other flavors are using white chocolate as the base instead of the regular milk chocolate. Mm-hmm. So, because I think it kind of, the white chocolate kind of like lends itself to better flavor, like profile with some random fruit or something. But so it's hard to say there. No, I don't know. I haven't really noticed a huge difference, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
Like in between the chocolate varieties. The thing is, they all taste different to me. So
right.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just curious because I know people that have had like the old style Cadburys, and they're like the olds are way better than the news. But we're talking about one company, one candy. So
well, it's like Mexican Coke too. And I mean, I don't know if you know anything about that, Michael, but in America, the Mexican Coke is like, it comes in a glass bottle and it's like got real sugar in it instead of high fructose corn syrup. So it's, it's like you go to your Mexican restaurant, you're like, hell yeah, I actually want this Coke. Like yeah.
Yeah, I have heard of that. It took my brain a while to realize that you were talking about Mexican Coca-Cola. I don't know. We had quite the leap here, but no, I knew about that primarily because the old one of the former prime ministers of the UK, Rishi Sunak, he had a Coca-Cola obsession, and he started talking about the virtues and benefits of Mexican Coca-Cola. So that is the only reason that I knew about that. Yeah.
It's the same thing Bob was saying. It's very much like less ingredients. It's just like sugar water, so it's a much
Yeah.
purer, like flavored version of what it's supposed to be, instead of the kind that they have in the vending machine that's full of whatever else they put into it. So it can sit in a vending machine for 2 years and still be good.
Yeah, they did the same thing with Dr. Pepper. You can get it with real cane sugar. You can get the old style Dr. Pepper, and of course, which I don't drink because I'm a diabetic. I can have sugar, so I have to have Dr. Pepper's like zero or diet. But they do have the ones with the cane sugar, and from what people have told me, that's like that's the good stuff, So it's like, yeah. But even Dr. Pepper, I've been drinking it, that since I was a little kid, and the flavors changed. If you want the old school Dr. Pepper, you got to get a Mr. Pibb. So, yeah.
Hey, Michael, can I ask you this question too? Because because you live, do you live in Japan still?
Yeah,
Okay.
I do.
I've heard that the Kit Kats are popular in Japan because it sounds like a kind of thing that people say when they say goodbye to each other. Is that true? I don't know. I wish I remembered exactly what it was, but it was like it sounds like I wish you well or something like that in the Japanese language. So people like to give them as little gifts, like when people leave.
You are completely right. So the Japanese kitokato is similar to kitokatsu, which means good luck. So there you go. We have confirmed it.
Nice.
And in terms of kind of continuing the Kit Kat thread and your passion for Kit Kats, if you're interested, what I'll start doing is I will actually start taking a photograph every time I see some Kit Kats and some different flavors, and then I'll post it in the Discord channel because I think other people will be interested too, and I'll
Yeah.
tag you and be like, are there any of these flavors that you haven't tried? And then I'll make a note of each one. And then when there's enough to minimize shipping and customs costs, like I can make a kind of care package of Kit Kats.
That
And
would be
yeah,
amazing. We would have a little
yeah,
feast here. I brought him.
yeah,
I brought him to StokerCon when I went a few years ago too. I had a little tasting because I have all these extras because they come in. Usually they don't. You can't
yeah.
buy like a single. You got to get a whole bag. So I'll have all these extras. I was just like I had them all out, and I was sitting there talking about them and all the different flavor notes and stuff. Like this is when I was really like I was still into it, but I was like deep into it at first. I was like trying to get them all like really, really quickly. So I had this kind of like working knowledge of all these flavors.
I could see some kind of documentary, some British guy going, and then we're going to talk to Danger Slater today, who is an expert in the connoisseur of Kit Kat. And it's like they go into this, my obsession started.
I have like my turtleneck on, like, because like every expert's got to wear a turtleneck.
But what is it that you're writing at the moment? What is the book that is currently in progress?
Oh, well, yeah. I'm writing this book about this. I don't even know how to explain this. It's about this insufferable neoliberal couple that wake up one day with this with umbilical cords stretching from their bellies to their garbage disposal. And they're trapped in their house by these umbilical cords and they're starving to death. And they soon realize that they can only survive by feeding human blood and body parts to their garbage disposal. So they need to figure out who among their friends and acquaintances are worthy of living and who's worthy of becoming food so that they can sustain themselves. It's I don't even know if that made any sense. It's very much a social satire, kind of in the vein of like like an American Psycho, but obviously surreal and with body horror stuff instead.
So they have an umbilical cord and it is attached to the
Garbage
waste disposal
Yeah.
unit, and But then they have to decide which of their friends will survive or which will be sacrificed. But then does that mean, so can they detach the umbilical cord so they can go about their day and they
No,
can...
no. Well, they're inviting people over to their house. So
Okay,
okay. So the husband is invented an app called Backyards, which is sort of like Next Door, except it also hooks up to your Ring doorbell so that everyone can see through everyone else's doorbell. So it's like Next Door, but everyone's also spying on everybody else. So it's like, but the idea is like, oh, but it's like so that we have a nice safe neighborhood, but it's also like everyone's up in each other's business, and they're all secretly judgmental of each other. And these are the types of people that I'm very much making fun of. Not making fun of, but examining, let's say, the types of people that I work for. I do, like I said, I do dog walking, and a lot of very well-meaning but well-off people are the types of people that are hiring someone to come walk their dogs. And I don't think they realize that their fact that they have money skews, even though they are professing the right things, they are, very socially progressive minded, at least in what they're saying. The fact that they have money actually warps their actual worldview in a way that I don't think a lot of them realize. So I'm kind of trying to examine that dichotomy where people say this one thing, but when it comes time to actually walk the walk, they can rationalize themselves out of this. So this is why they're kind of like, oh, we profess we like these types of things, but then if I have to kill these people, this one did this thing, so they deserve to die. Like, I have to make these hard decisions based off of what I think is right. I'm having I'm doing a terrible job of explaining this, but
I don't know, because you've really sold me on it.
I know, dude. I've got my credit card ready.
Yeah.
I want to read this.
Yeah, it's transgressive in a way that I normally don't do. I'm not necessarily trying to be provocative when I write in a way that is like, let me try and push people their boundaries of what makes them feel comfortable. But this is a book that I am kind of doing that. I've been reading a lot of like Chuck Palahniuk and like Alyssa Nutting and Otesha Moshfegh, I think her name is. These are people that are like doing these kind of social satires with a horror bent to them. And I've just kind of been like, what would a Danger Slater version of that be? Like, what would my version of doing a social satire be? And of course, it involves body horror because all of my books kind of go in that direction because I can't help myself. So, yeah. I'm hoping I hit the right tone, because if I don't, nobody's going to want to publish it. Like, it's a really fine line of like I'm making fun of quote unquote liberal people because a lot of these people are not actually what they claim to be. And it is infuriating to me, someone who actually wants or sees what the kind of hypocritical nature of all this. It's kind of infuriating to be like, I love what you say, but I don't like you or the way you're saying it. Or like what, I don't know. Like, we'll see. We'll see what it looks like when I'm done. I think it's turning out really good, but at the same time, I'm pretty nervous about it.
It's good to be nervous about it, though,
yeah,
because that means that you're doing like what I was talking about earlier. You're doing something that is maybe provocative is the right word.
Every time I sit down, I say to myself, what would be a great, awesome commercial idea that would get me tens, hundreds of thousands of readers? And then I come up with something and then write the exact opposite of that because I'm an asshole who can't help myself. I just can't get excited about that idea enough to write it. I have to do the thing that speaks to me, which is usually the weirdest or most like difficult thing.
Michael David Wilson goes through that every draft.
Yeah. Yeah, the amount of times I've been like, right, this time I'll write something commercial. And then like I'll just add an element like a calisthenic sex cult, and it's like, well, now you've spoiled it, haven't you? This is not gonna be the mainstream thing that you wanted it to. But yeah, if I just try to write something mainstream, then it's so boring and so inauthentic and just so obvious the reasons that I'm doing it. And so you're far more likely to be successful doing that weird idea that you 100% believe in. Because also, I mean, the ideas that become really popular, as we said earlier, they're never a copycat. It's something that is original and something that is unique. So you just have to continue doing these weird ideas. And if you do enough, then maybe you'll land upon one which will make you considerable money. And maybe you won't, but at least you had fun doing it and, you didn't sell out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wrote a novella during the summer that started off because I'm extremely fearful of home invasion. That's because just you can sit there and just read a couple of those real life accounts and you realize that this can happen to anyone at any time. And so, and that shit scares me. I mean, like, that's a fear that I have, and I wanted to explore that. And of course, it turned out to be something that is, quite funny, but also probably some of the most violent shit I've ever written in my entire life. Because the idea is like, how do I make this different? How do I make it stand out? How do I make it weird? And I said, fuck it, I'm going all in. So I took something that could have been very, very commercial, and now I don't know anybody who would publish it. I mean, because it's fucking violent, man.
Yeah.
There's parts in there that I couldn't finish. I mean, I had to write over several nights because I was just like, God damn. But I'm like, okay, I'm pushing it. It's the only way I'm gonna get anybody to like my characters. Believe it or not, it's the antagonists are the protagonists. So crazy.
It's just like there's like, and I don't know about you guys, but like I try to think of the stuff that really resonates with me, the kind of movies that I love or the books that I love that kind of echo into my soul, and it's never the popular stuff. It never is. Like, maybe not true, but there's occasionally like a popular thing that it hits me. But like a lot of times it's like I'm going out of my way to watch movies that I feel like I'm trying to discover something instead of like just saying like, oh yeah, Transformers 11's out. Like, let me turn my brain off and watch Transformers 11. Like, there's a time and place for that. Like, not everything needs to be a fucking challenge to your brain. But at the same time, it's not like I'm not out there saying this is my favorite movie or the best thing that's ever happened, right? There's the real shit is not popular by design. And that's something I've always consumed, and I don't know why I would be making anything different, right? Like when it comes down to it, aside from the fact that there's a part of me that goes, make something that people want to read because you want to get paid and not walk rich people's dogs anymore. Like you want to make art that can provide for you. That's the goal of every, I mean, maybe that's not the goal of every artist, but that is one of the goals. When you write something, you say, I want people to read it. And the way people are reading it is by buying it. Like, so it kind of goes hand in hand. So there is this part of me that's always like, how do I do that? And then it's never the thing I want to actually write. It's never the thing I want to write. And I don't even know if it would be able to. Like, even if I came up with the most commercial idea, like, I don't know if I could do it. Like maybe I'm not that type of person. Maybe I am just like a little freaky weirdo, and I should just really embrace that instead of trying to wish that I was a a type of artist that everyone, that my grandma could be into. Like maybe I shouldn't be trying to make art that grandmas could be into. Maybe I should make art that makes grandmas upset. Or as many people as upset as possible. Like, who cares? Like, whatever's speaking to me, like, I should just be following that and not thinking about that. I'm pep talking myself as we go. I'm kind of like examining this as we're talking. So,
I think there's a lot of truth in terms of what you're saying, and I mean the thing I think is, like I said before, I think the more that you write, that's like tickets to the lottery. That's tickets to something good happening. So I'll just keep writing more of these weird books, and I'll hope that eventually maybe one will speak to enough people, or I know Army Hammer will read it and then it will go viral for all the wrong reasons, but that'll end up with curiosity and sales, or maybe one of them will be made into a movie and the movie is much more commercial than the book, and then
yeah.
that kind of works out, or you get royalties on the back of that. So it only takes one book, but a surefire guarantee to not have it happen is if you just stop writing. Some people, they think, oh, these ideas aren't commercial, so I'm just going to give up. I'm disillusioned. And it's like, well, if you give up, you've definitely lost. But if you keep writing, you're giving yourself a chance every single time. And I think what you said about not being able to write a commercial book, it's probably true in the sense that neither of us can write a commercial book authentically because we don't believe in it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe the people who write it and they do well and they're a success, they do believe in it. And that's not for us. Like, if you write a commercial one, there's got to be at least one joke that is derogatory towards Richard Gere. And even that could be enough that people are out. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just think keep doing what you're doing. You're one of my favorite writers. I always have a good time when I'm reading your stuff, and it's because you are you rather than you trying to be a writer that you're not. So yeah, keep on doing it.
I love that. Thank you so much. That's awesome. I'm also sitting here like calling myself Danger Slater. I'm like already self-selecting myself out of so many people's minds because they're gonna be like, "What the fuck is that?" Like I'm like I'm not gonna read a book by someone who calls himself Danger. But then there's a bunch of people that are gonna go, actually, I'm 100% gonna read a book because this guy's called himself Danger. Like I need to know what that is. So I'm just gonna dig in. That's my path forward. That's what I'm seeing. I'm just going to dig into the dangerness.
We've never actually asked about the Danger name origin story. We asked last time about why you were the world's most flammable writer, but I think the question for this podcast is why Danger Slater?
Oh, this was. I've barely talked about this. This is a nickname that has been around for like 20 years for me. It wasn't when I started writing, I kind of reclaimed it. It wasn't like everyone was calling me this for a long time, but when I was in high school, I don't know if you remember Jackass, but this was Jackass was very popular. So we were those kinds of kids that like to fuck around like those guys, and we weren't afraid to kind of run around and hurt ourselves. The thing is, the name itself came from I was on a date with this girl and we went ice skating, and I didn't know how to ice skate, and I kept falling over. like in a really comical way. I was a gangly dude, and like my legs would be like whoop, 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 and kicking, and I would slip and I'd fall. And it got to the point where the ref at the ice skating rink pulled me aside and told me I was a danger to everybody else on the ice because I kept falling and getting in the way. And I told this story to my friends, and they thought it was very, very funny. So they started calling me that, ironically, because they're like, "Oh, you're like a goofball who can't even stand upright." But I kind of internalized it, right? So I was like, yeah, I'm Danger Slater. That's like my nickname now. So then I started being like more outgoing to match the nickname itself. So then when we started messing around, like I said, we were into Jackass and all these other things, I would be the one who was instigating or pushing myself further or doing the thing that was the stupidest thing or the thing that was going to hurt myself, because I went, wait a minute, I'm Danger. That's what I'm doing. That's who I am. So let me do that thing. So there was a couple of years there where like I was embodying this like shitty amateur stuntman mindset, all because I couldn't ice skate and I was trying to impress a girl. So it's a very long way of saying when I started writing in 2010 or so, I wanted to pick a pen name. I mean, I could have used my real birth name, but I picked this as my pen name or reclaimed my nickname because I wanted my writing to feel like that person that I was when I was pushing myself, going, yeah, I'll be the one who'll get in the shopping cart. You push me down the hill. I don't care. Like to be the one who's like, I'm not afraid of anything, and I don't want my fiction to be afraid of anything. And when I get in front of people as an author and put myself out there, to not be afraid of anything that's coming my way. So I once again tried to reclaim this nickname and give it a power that I could then follow, which, to varying degrees of success, I think I've done so.
So not being able to ice skate was basically the best thing that has ever happened to you.
It was, yeah. It was actually really embarrassing. That whole thing. We didn't go out very much after that, me and that girl, so it didn't really work out.
Well, it didn't matter because you were Danger Slater. You only went for dangerous people after that, doing dangerous things. But no, I love that, and I can see how the Danger pen name does extend to your writing. I mean, yeah, it is fearless. I mean, who the hell else is gonna write an entire novella about like a mushroom infected house and all that you've done with Starlet as well? So yeah, it totally works. I want to know, from the year of reading longer books, has that made you want to write a longer book? Because I think you're known for writing novellas and shorter works, but I wondered what that did for you and if it even changed how you approach your C story.
I don't know if it's made me want to write a longer book, but it did show me something actually very interesting, which is that, okay, most books are 300 pages. That's like kind of the like Simon and Schuster, a hardcover. It needs to be 300 pages, or between 250, let's say, and 400. So there's like a little window of like, that's how long books are. They're not novellas like the stuff that the Big Five is publishing, and they're not these giant tomes unless you're writing high fantasy or you're already a famous writer who can write giant tomes. So the thing that I learned was that books that are 600 pages or more are usually that long because they need to be that long, right? These are stories that have a lot to them and need that space to breathe. They're not padded. 600-page books aren't padded. 1,000-page books aren't padded. They're that long because they're epics. 300-page books are padded novellas so often. Like, it's because people are going, I have an idea. It's not this gigantic epic idea that could fill a tome. It is basically just an idea that I need to fill 300 pages. So a lot of books that are 300 pages would really do better or read better if they get cut 100 pages from them. So ironically, reading long books made me realize that regular length books are too long. It should be
Yeah.
novellas.
No, I can see that, and I've even known of writers who have told me that they had to extend a book because their publisher told them to. They told them to
Yeah.
insert more scenes to make it more commercially viable. And I mean, I think as well, we've all read books as you've said where we felt this could be tighter. So I wonder how much of that is because of editorial interference, and how much is like, I think some people like falsely they get this perception like, oh, it has to be novel length to be a proper book. Like they trick themselves into these weird things. Normally, like starting out writers, I think anyone who's been in the game for long enough doesn't think like that, but it's almost like that societal perception, I think. But yeah, it's
I'm not saying every 300 page book needs to be 150 pages, but I'm just saying, like, I do see it all the time. Exactly what you're saying. It feels, a lot of them feel padded, like so padded. I'm like, just get to the point. Like, I don't know. Like, get to the story. You know what? This is just a personal thing, but I hate, and this is something popular books do, like that thing where, like, I feel like the publisher or the agent or whoever, the editor, doesn't trust the audience to get into the story if you don't start with an action scene, like an out of context action scene. Like, here's something that's going to happen, like, and it's only like a few pages, but it'll be like, here's something that's going to happen later in the book or something, and it's like, I don't know, like, start at the beginning. Don't, like, give me, I hate when movies do it too, when they start with like an action scene out of context and they stop and go, oh, I bet you're wondering how I got here. Like, no, like, don't don't do it. Just start at the beginning of wherever the story actually starts. Like, this is just a personal gripe. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's like it's the prologue thing where you have to have a prologue. And here's the thing, I don't have a problem with prologues. I just wish they were more effective.
Yeah.
Like, Let the Right One In has a beautiful prologue that basically is a third person narration from the POV of the little town that they're moving into. And you get to see, like a fly on the wall's view of, Ely and Haken, whoever his name is, moving into their new home at night. And it's not from any other character's point of view. It's from the city. And I think it's actually called The City. And it's a beautiful little piece that really kind of sets the mood and sets the tone. And that's a rarity. You don't see that. And I used to think that gigantic novels were padded because I got into this mode where, like, hey, yeah, a lot of these novels could actually be novellas. And it tempered my feelings of books that I'd read younger and reread. Like classic examples, It, because, I revisited that on the website on, my tattered tomes, and I kind of disparaged it. I've read it since then, and I think that every single page in that book matters.
Yeah.
I should probably write another revisit about it because it matters. There's stories within stories that if one of those stories is taken away, it makes the whole book fall apart. And so my opinion of that has changed. Are there padded 1,000-page books? Sure. But it's the scope of the story that makes it. If you have an epic scope, then you need epic length. That sounded really bad, but yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you with It. I read that one during that year for the first time, and I've thought that it was one of the best books I've ever read. So yeah, I don't think it's like 1,100 or 1,200 words, pages. I mean, but I don't think there's a wasted word in there.
Yeah, my opinion of it has changed, and I mean it's the thing. My opinion of it's likely to change. I have the right to change my mind, but as of right now, I feel that I gave it a bad rap. 10 years ago or 6 years ago, whenever I last reread it. I'll probably reread it again. It's a great book.
Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been a tremendous pleasure chatting with you, as it was the previous time. So thank you very much for spending so long talking to us. Yeah, but I wonder, where can our listeners connect with you?
I don't know, Instagram or Twitter. I don't know. You know what? If you type Danger Slater into Google, I'm the only one that's going to come up. So pick your social media of choice, and you could follow me at any of those: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or none of them. Just type my name in, because it'll also go to my Amazon page where the books are being sold. So.
All right. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners and viewers?
No, I don't know. I feel like I've said every word that I know. They're all out. Yeah.
There you go. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you so much for listening to Danger Slater on This Is Horror. Join us again next time when we'll be welcoming back David Moody to talk about his latest book, Shadowlocked. Now, if you would like that and every conversation ahead of the crowd, become our patron at patreon.com/thisishorror. Not only do you get early bird access to each and every episode, but you can submit questions to the interviewee. And in terms of future conversations, we will soon be talking to Eric LaRocca and Richard Gismar. So if you have a question for either of them, patreon.com/thisishorror. Okay, before I wrap up, a quick advert break.
In 1867, the young Samantha Gray marries the infamous Captain Jakes, unleashing a series of brutal horrors in this epic splatter western from Death's Head Press. Mayhem Sam by J.D. Grays is a rip-roaring tall tale of revenge, drags a coffin full of gold across the hellscape of Reconstruction, Texas, and explodes at the top of a mountain. You better read this one with the lights on.
Are you a reader with an insatiable appetite for creeping dread? Do you hunger for fiction of an eldritch nature? Try Cosmic Horror Monthly, a magazine dedicated to publishing the very best in cosmic horror and weird fiction. CHM offers tomes in digital and print, and when you subscribe today, your first print copy is free. Hurry, before the stars finally align.
I used to end these episodes with a quote without really making any comment, but I decided that I want to start looking at various bits of writing advice and so-called inspirational quotes and giving my take as to how useful I think these quotes actually are. And so recently, I saw somebody post this quote from Dan Poynter. If you wait for inspiration to write, you're not a writer, you're a waiter. I don't know what you think to that, but I think that quote is incredibly flawed. Now, I understand the spirit and the good intentions of the quote. Essentially, don't wait for inspiration to strike, start writing. Seize the moment, then inspiration will follow. Now that is good advice, I think. Likewise, don't just wait around. Create opportunities. seek out your passion, your inspiration. Get inspired. Watch good art. Read good art. Listen to music that excites you. Go for a walk. Visit places. Whatever it is that gets you in a good mood, that gets you in a creative mood. So there is something, if you dig deeper, if you almost add caveats to the quote, but just taking it at face value, something about it rubs me the wrong way. If you wait for inspiration to write, and then you write, you are still a writer. Every moment you are not writing does not mean you are not a writer. If you write, you are a writer. So the quote is simplistic and unhelpful, added to which those who seek out inspiration rarely just wait. They are active in seeking inspiration. And isn't everyone who writes inspired in some way? Isn't the act of writing an inspired act? This idea of opposing writing and inspiration is ludicrous. So the helpful takeaway is to write regularly, to write even on those days you're not so inspired or infused, but to tell you that moments you're not writing, or on the days that you're not writing, you're no longer a writer, it's bullshit. Very few writers write every day, and there have been an enormous amount of hugely popular, of hugely talented writers who took breaks from writing, extended breaks. Fitzgerald, Virginia Woolf, John Steinbeck, they all took breaks from writing. Are you going to tell me that they weren't writers, Mr. Dan Poynter? Well, he's not going to tell me because he's actually passed away. But the point is that if you wait for inspiration to write, and then you write, you're a writer. You're just waiting at the moment where you're waiting. Much like I'm waiting if I'm waiting at a supermarket. It doesn't mean it defines me. I'm not then perpetually a waiter. Well, if you have a quote that you want me to consider and comment on, send me an email, michael@thisishorror.co.uk. Is this what you want to hear at the end of each episode? I know. You let me know. But what I do know is this episode is done. So I will see you in the next one with David Moody. But until then, take care of yourselves. Be good to one another. Read horror. Keep on writing. And have a great, great day.
This is Horror Podcast.